Today, we're talking about PlayStation's dumpster fire of a showcase. Big changes are coming to Overwatch, and reviews are finally out for Avowed. But what are the scores like? Stick around to find out. Welcome, friends, to this week's episode of Good Playing With You, the weekly gaming podcast. I'm Dan Whitehill, and as always, I'm joined by my charismatic congregation of Matts, Matt Lord.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matthew Maulding.
Hey now.
We've got a lot of great stories this week, but first, let's talk Sony's latest state of play. There are plenty of games announced, but I'm just going to recap the biggest ones and get your guys' opinions. Then at the end, I want to hear what letter grade you guys would give the show. So starting off with the first one, Monster Hunter Wilds kicked off the show. Now, we've all seen this one, and it was interesting that Monster Hunter kicked off the show, but it looked great, of course. It comes out in 2 weeks, February 28th. Don't think it needs much more of a description. What was interesting here was the multiple free title updates. They really seem to be supporting this thing after launch that they teased. The first update being the spring update that will bring a new Leviathan called Mitsune, I believe.
That's close. Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, thank you. Maulding, since you are a super fan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I already have the game pre-ordered, so they didn't need to sell me on it. I did think it was absolutely completely shocking that they started off their direct with a third-party title. I thought that was a little crazy, but we will see that was a theme throughout the entire show. And I tried my very best to actually not even look at the monsters that they were fighting. I just wanted to look at the weapons that were being used, and because I don't want to be spoiled on any of the monsters. So I'm super excited. I mean, I've talked about it before. It's one of my favorite games. The fact that there's title updates is not a new thing. That's what Monster Hunter does. They'll put out new monsters periodically until they do a big DLC. Then they'll do the big DLC and continue then supporting. So I'm expecting them to support this game for 2 years, probably. Very excited.
Definitely. Well, I love hearing about title updates because it really seems the publisher's invested. So I thought that was great. I also thought it was interesting and telling that they started with the third party. Lord, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it looked like more Monster Hunter. I'm sure it made all the fans stoked to get another, iteration under the belt. Monster Hunter hasn't exactly been my cup of tea for a second, but there's always something like, I don't know, Maulding takes me under his wing and shows me the ropes. I could get lured in there. It's just, I just have so many weird, just from back in the day, trying to play on the DS and getting into lobbies where people are just like, go away, noob, you suck. And I'm like, oh, all right.
I mean, you might get a little of that, but people are actually very nice. It is the community is very nice, and they want to help people. I've found. So
nice. Yeah. Well, that's just like, that's been my experience. Like, I played some of the Monster Hunter worlds, and that was great. I didn't play quite enough, but hey, if you want to pick it up
under my wing, I'll wear deodorant.
I'm ready. I'll take a look. I mean, Dan, is this something you see yourself jumping into, or what's your take on this one?
Definitely not. I'll wait and hear what you guys have to say, but I couldn't stand the combat in the last one. It's really felt like when I was swinging my knives, I wasn't hitting anything. I felt like Wild Hearts just innovated on the formula with all of their Fortnite style building and made things a little bit more accessible with the multiplayer, and I had a better time of it. And if this feels like us taking a step backwards, I'm definitely not in. I know that pains a lot of people because there are some real Monster Hunter fans out there, and I don't mean to yuck anyone's yum, but this definitely just is not for me. So I'm going to wait on that one.
Get good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one. Lost Soul Aside. Now, Lost Souls Aside received a new gameplay and story trailer alongside a release date of May 30th on PS5 and PC. They called it, quote, a sprawling adventure full of breathtaking visuals and adrenaline-pumping combat, end quote. But to me, it just looked like a girl with a big sword running down a hallway continually, occasionally fighting monsters. Not very hyped on this one. What'd you guys think?
I'm with you. I think a lot of these games, this is sort of the theme. Lots of huge set piece running, see different things. This one kind of got lost in the shuffle in the showcase for me. I wasn't sure. This one was the one, it looked a little more, to be honest, it reminded me a little bit of like Final Fantasy 16-esque. Like I was having some like, okay, it looks a little Final Fantasy, like and this is the one also where there was a bunch of aerial like moments where they're jumping through the air. And I mean, I gotta say I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. So like that honestly speaks to me. But I don't know. I was like, well, this is kind of another one that I'm sort of like, well, I'll have to kind of wait and see. Maybe I'll let one of you guys pick it up, and then I'll kind of sneak in on the in the end. We'll see. What do you think, Maulding?
I think we'll talk about it as we move through the other games, but there's like three or four games in this direct that are almost indistinguishable from each other. And then you even take there is a couple of samurai games that you just take the samurai out and they're still the same game as the other ones. So it looked like fun. I like the traversal. The guy had some like wings that changed into, looked like maybe he was stepping on platforms or something. There were some interesting traversal effects there, which I'm a sucker for. I think you the same way, Lord. But we'll wait and see what people say about it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, Dan, is this speaking anything to you?
Not even close to being interesting to me, but I understand that other people like this, and I really, am happy if they're happy, but this was definitely not one for me. Speaking of one that should be for me, though, is our next game, Borderlands 4. Now, unfortunately, this one to me just looked like more of the same. It's officially going to be released September 23rd. And to celebrate the release, Gearbox shared a brand new gameplay trailer that gives another look at the sequel. They also announced that there will be a Borderlands 4 themed state of play arriving later this spring. But I gotta wonder, why have a state of play on a game that looks exactly like all of the others we've played? What are they going to show us? What do you guys think?
Maybe they're holding cards close to their chest, and maybe there are some big surprises that we're going to get to see in this. So I'm crossing my fingers that that's going to be the case. But honestly, if you told me that was Borderlands 3 or Borderlands 2 or even Borderlands 1, I would have believed you and been like, oh, that's fun. More Borderlands. So I'm probably not a day one. I do want to play it because they are fun games. And, when there is a fun, Monster Hunter is a perfect example. When there's a fun game, I'm open to playing more of that type of game. And that's what Borderlands is going to be. But it just looks exactly the same. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah. I to be honest, I think I was more pleased with what this was looking like as opposed to what they showcased like a month or two ago. Like this looked like it actually showed some stuff. There was some interesting like double jump, like you're kind of taken into the air a little bit, and that looked like potentially a new type of mechanic.
It did look faster. Didn't the play look faster than the other ones? That's for sure.
Well, that looked cool, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't see like, are they just playing, the cards close to the chest and not really revealing what's going on here? Like, Dan, what do you think? Because you are the Borderlands man.
Yeah.
What do they need to show to like really up the hype level?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, no, that's funny because Maulding's so right. I love a good turret in these games, and usually they do have a character that has ones. And I think, to be honest with you, that's exactly what we're going to see in the state of play. Is we are going to see the character classes, we're going to see them in action, we're going to see their powers, and I'm concerned that they think that's enough to sell it, but they have to realize after the 4 Borderlands, because don't forget the pre-sequel, as well as the Tiny Tina's spin-off and all the DLC, which I got all of it, except for the Tiny Tina's DLC, which was a total cash grab and bullshit. they've put out the game essentially the same time so many times. A lot of their games are fetch questy. All you do is shoot people, and occasionally your guns get a little bit better. There isn't a lot of thought. And that's what I'd like to see out of this. Maybe a more, they're going to have to introduce the villain. So, I don't think they've ever been able to rival Handsome Jack. So they've got to find something there. If they're able to do that, that might pull me in. The storyline might pull me in. But my concern is it's just more of the same. And I could go either way of it. You can bet your ass I'm going to be watching it like a hawk, because I used to be a Borderlands super fan, and I used to do all of the min-maxing thing and hunting all of the beasts at the end of the game. And I loved that so much. And I would love to feel that again. But after, 4 times, it's kind of hard to recapture the magic unless they're going to add something new. So we'll just have to all pay attention to that state of play when it comes around.
I got it. I got the twist that they're going to bring in, because remember they had the old cinematic that had standard visual graphics. They weren't shell shaded. This game is going to have 2 different styles of graphics depending on where you're at. You're going to have the shells shaded, and then you're going to go, it's going to kind of become this 3D-esque world. And that would be cool. I honestly think that would be an interesting take. But I doubt they're going to do it. But
you're completely wrong.
I'm really wrong.
We really appreciate your enthusiasm.
We do.
This is another one of your Indiana Jones. You're not playing as Indiana Jones theories.
It could very well, maybe. But could you imagine? Would that even? Let's say it does happen. Would that be cool? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I figure the amount of work to do that, they would basically have to make the game twice. So
bingo. Yeah. And they're not the kind of company, especially judging off of that last DLC of Tiny Tina's, that are interested in doing any extra work.
Very true. Dang. Well, we'll have to see. I guess we'll get some more here soon.
Agreed. And bottom line here, my heart is open. I want to be wooed. I don't want to come off too negative on this one, because I have had such good memories. And I really would love to continue that with the next one. But then moving on to the next game, The Midnight Walk. This is really interesting looking stop motion first person action adventure game that releases on the PS5 and PSVR 2 May 8th. This was really wild. The graphics were great. They're dark and claymation, and you shot like a light tube at people, almost like Alan Wake, where you're shooting light and stuff like that. But this was more gun-like, and there were spiders and interesting creatures. It was definitely very dark and very unique. What did you guys think?
This was the first one that grabbed my attention, that I was not looking at my phone, not looking at anything else. I watched that full thing, and I think it reminds me of Nightmare Before Christmas, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And there was even a character in there that looked like the mayor of Halloween Town. But I think it looks great, and I'm really it doesn't hurt my eyes. I was really worried that kind of animation would hurt my eyes, like the South of the other game
South of Midnight.
South of Midnight, thank you. I think it looks great. I'm super excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Maulding. Definitely captures your attention. I think the way they did the claim, the stop motion definitely was cool. I love the dark themes of it. This one, I almost see my one hang up is it's being tied in with the PSVR. Now, is this going to be more reliant on the PSVR? Are we going to be missing out on something? Because you're not in VR. And because let me tell you, I have a great example of what a major problem with this. I played Half-Life Alyx. There's a mod where you can play it without in VR, and it's a total miss. It doesn't feel right at all. You have to play it in VR. So I'm kind of having a moment of that. I'm I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a game that is a VR heavy game, and you can play it standard, but you might be missing out on some of the key points.
You're cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic on this one. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's more than I could say. This game
Dan doesn't care.
No, I like the art style. It's quaint. could be a gimmick, and I see myself getting tired of it. It doesn't seem like it would lend itself to any sort of interesting storytelling. I would give it a shot, but I'm not going to pay $70 for it. That's for
Well,
sure.
No.
I think they said this one was 40, right? I think.
Oh, did
Great.
they?
Well,
I think they said this one was. I thought they said this one was 40, or I heard it from somewhere. I'm like, 40's not
Yeah.
too bad.
Did you hear it from the same place that Borderlands 4 is going to have the two different?
I think I did hear that. Yeah, from the same source.
Well, if it's going to be 40, then I look forward to picking it up for $10 when it's on sale.
Yes.
Yeah. I get you.
All right. The next one up is Darwin's Paradox. And this is an action-adventure story-based platformer. Darwin's Paradox is aiming to let players, quote, truly understand what it feels like to be an octopus, end quote. Darwin can climb, camouflage himself, and shoot ink in amazing-looking side-scrolling adventure from Konami, of all places. The only way I could really describe it is almost like Inside meets Finding Nemo. And I thought it was pretty much, to be honest with you, a standout of the show. This small little game has graphics that were jaw-droppingly beautiful. I thought, of course, Darwin is adorable, and it seemed really unique. It is kind of a side scroller, so I'm not paying $70 for it, but it had my interest peaked. What did you guys think?
Sony is in its platform era. Get ready to have some more of
This
these
is
games.
Konami, though.
But I mean, yes, but I think Sony's going to be capitalizing on like these platformers, and it's just interesting. I think I'm like, they're showcasing this little thing, even though I got to give him credit because it looked very like incredible. I thought the colors were super vibrant. It looked cool. I liked how you can kind of camouflage with the squid, and I'm sure there's a lot of different mechanics with that. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, maybe if it's like a $30 game, this is something that I could see myself buying. Or maybe it just comes, I don't know, maybe it just is like a PlayStation Plus game at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was talking about this game with friend of the pod, Chad Conselmo, last night at dinner, and we were talking about how I do not even like, I don't like platformers. I talk about it on the pod pretty often that I don't find them very fun, but this one grabbed my attention immediately. I got that Finding Nemo kind of vibe to it with the colors. I love octopus, so that has a huge thing to it, and it just looked like it was really fun, way more fun than some of the other platformers that I see around. So this one was one of my like top games of the show, just like what you said, Dan. Like, it's kind of funny that this little baby game is one of the best ones, I think.
Agreed. Now, what price would you be willing to put on it? Because I'm not sure I'm ready to run out and buy it just yet.
Game Pass. That's the price now. Maybe if I'm in a game drought where there's not much to do, I would say 30. Maybe. I don't know that I'd go 40. Okay. We'll see. Also, again, maybe people get their hands on it and they're like, oh, all you do is there's like 3 stages and there's nothing to do. Like, so who knows what people will say. But yeah, maybe 30.
All right.
That's a good point. That's a good price point, I think. 30. Yeah, that's it.
Again, I'll pick it up on sale when it's $10, I guess, if it gets good reviews. The next game was Hell Is Us. This is an action-adventure game set in a war-torn country where players must unravel the mysteries of their past and confront the human darkness that fuels the chaos. It will be available on PlayStation 5 on September 4th, 2025. Definitely post-apocalyptic looking, definitely strange. What did you guys think?
I love this is the one where they had kind of like the big guy with the big jowls, right? The kind of scary looking guy. If you watched why am I blanking? It was one of the Marvel show, Legion had a character that looked like this guy, and that gave me those vibes, and I was in. I think it looks really, really cool. That dark aesthetic, what you said, the description that Sony provided is a little bit of word salad, like that could describe any game, but this one did look like could be a lot of fun, so I'm in on this.
Agreed. I was gonna say, most unique vibes out of all the hack and slashers that we got. I thought it was cool. The little drone that flies around, some of the set pieces that they showed were really cool. You got the monsters that are like missing a face and screaming at you, and I love a good like interrogation setting. You're right, with the Jowls guy hanging out.
Yeah.
And honestly, I liked Control a lot. That game was awesome, and I was kind of getting some mysterious Control vibes in there. And so this is probably one I could see I would be picking up. I would probably spend $70 on this game.
Would you do it day one?
I probably would do day one, but I would probably like read a couple things there first, just to make
I think so
sure
too.
we're on the right track. And then, because I don't want to like a bait and switch. In my mind, I
Yeah.
feel like this looks like a really cool game that like looks very edgy, very mature. Like it could be potentially like brutal. And so I'm hoping it's all those things, and I just don't want it to like pull the punch, you know?
I felt the division in there a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like it didn't like a little bit of that. Which
Yeah, I felt like the
Division,
outfit.
they were
Yeah.
tough games to like, but they were fun.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm hyped. I think I would do day one on this one. What are your takes, Dan?
I'd wait to see what you have to say about it. I did like the Division, although
And any money.
but this one's not for me yet. I'm open to learning more about it. It seemed relatively interesting. I'm curious what the story is because it seems so bleak. I want to know more. I'm curious to learn more about the combat and what the moment-to-moment kind of gameplay is. But I'm going to wait and hear from you before I pull the trigger on anything. That's for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, do we think, what is our take on the title of the game? Like, do we think it's kind of like, almost, it's like trying to be edgy? I don't know. Something about the title a little bit is like, I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's Last of Us. That's the Last of Us. This is like, it's that TV
that's a
show.
good point.
This Is Us. Like it's all that kind of vibe.
That might be it. All right. That's a good point, Maulding.
That's
right
what I
there.
felt. Yeah.
All right, moving on. I'd love to know what your interpretation is for the title of our next game, Tides of Annihilation. And this looks like a beautiful single-player, narrative-driven action-adventure game that combines intense breakneck combat and immersive narrative and unforgetting setting. That's what they said. But it takes place in modern London and it's been taken over by monsters and otherworldly forces, and players take on the role of Gwendolyn, and they'll be able to call in the Knights of the Round Table to help her in combat. But to me, to be honest, it looked like a girl with a big sword running down a hallway, and I couldn't tell it apart from Lost Soul Aside, except for her. She was a brunette, I believe, and the Lost Soul Aside, the girl was blonde. Also in this one, the areas were a little bit bigger, so the hallways were bigger, whereas the other one, the hallways were narrower, but woman running down a hallway with a sword. That was my take on this one. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Molly?
same. Was there a Shadow of the Colossus-esque sort of thing? It looked like she was climbing a monster to fight it. That might be interesting. Granted, I've never played Shadow of the Colossus, so I can't speak to that, but that's what it felt like. I love anything that takes place in a real city. That's fun. But yes, it looks so similar to everything else that I was like, I'm the one that put this in our list of games to talk about. I watched the trailer twice. Still, I can't remember much of it at all. It's that kind of like, oh, we've seen it before.
Yeah, the standout to me was like the walking giant that was kind of making his way. I thought that looked really cool. I love a good giant in a game. The combat, definitely, you got that like slow motion style type dodge. I'm assuming you're gonna kind of like summon the warriors, and they're gonna like, you could potentially do a certain combo set alongside them. That's how I sort of envision this going down. It looks like what they showed, it was almost like you were in like an arena type of setting. Like you had that, like you were in like a little circle, like fighting. So I don't know, maybe you get transported there to fight. I'm not sure. There was a lot going on in this one, and I agree. It looked so similar to the game earlier in the showcase that I'm like, okay, we're getting a lot of hack and slashers here. Something about that makes me a little nervous. I just wanted to, because I kind of am smelling microtransaction costumes going on in some of these, and that is why I think we're getting a lot of these third-person games capitalize on that microtransaction deal. But I think at least we're getting some like good, for like single player games, and so this is another one that I would potentially pick up at probably on sale on this one.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't for me. But moving on to something that looked a little bit more interesting, Mindseye. Now, this one was interesting because it's the former lead GTA series developer Leslie Benzie's game, and Mindseye took basically us into the world with Jacob Diaz, a former soldier who is haunted by a covert mission gone wrong. And to make matters worse, he has a mysterious neural implant called the Mind's Eye that plagues him with fragmented memories, and he is desperate to uncover the truth about his past. So, okay, at least an interesting story and setup there. Mindseye takes place in Red Rock, a place where AI, robotics, and neural implants have changed society for both the good and the bad. Players will be able to experience action on foot, in cars, and even in the sky as they uncover more about Jacob's story. What did you guys think of this one?
Loved it. Oh, Matt, do you want to go?
No, Maulding, go
Yeah,
for it.
loved it. I didn't even catch the fact that the GTA guy was one of the people responsible for it, because watching it, I was like, ooh, this feels like GTA. And I was on board with it. And I also got a little Deus Ex, and we haven't had a Deus Ex in a long time, so I felt a little bit of that. I think the mocap looked fantastic, really great facial animations. I'm really pumped for this one. This one might be a day one for me.
And as I totally agree with you on those, how I want those to be, this could be hopefully the next Crackdown-esque type of game. That I miss a good Crackdown, and for some reason this game kind of reminded me. I'm like, maybe Crackdown.
Definitely the color in the city. I can
Yes.
see those vibes for sure.
Yes.
But no orbs. I didn't see any orbs in the sky. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
No orbs. Yeah, but you're
Was
right.
super
When I
jumping.
heard it was the GTA guy, I was like, okay, this could potentially be really cool. And I know we've mentioned on the show, why have we not cloned the GTA formula? So I'm hoping we get something along those lines, please. So I'd be really into it. I think, yeah, I'm with Maulding. This could potentially be another day one type of buy for me.
For me, this one had me very cautious. There are a few red flags. Yes, I wanted it to be an open world GTA type game. I want to believe, but I almost got some, Watch Dogs vibes from it, to be honest with you. I thought when we saw the city in the game from the overhead, like the car view, it looked very sparse. I didn't see a lot of pedestrians or people. I didn't see a lot of detail. This one didn't wow me at all, and I wanted it to. And that's not to say that my heart isn't open. I want to believe. I want to be wowed. But here's one red flag that I just want to put out there. Leslie Benzie's company initially announced a game called Everywhere, and this was a platform where you could build other games inside it. Everywhere was described as Roblox on steroids, and this is the first product from Everywhere. But it has me concerned because they really went quiet in 2023 on Everywhere after announcing it and revealing it, and really just focused on Mind's Eye as a game. And they haven't talked about anything else that's powering behind it. So my concern is maybe they quit working on Everywhere. I don't know. And then they just focused on this. But because it's coming from like a modular based game system, kind of like a Roblox, it's just not going to hit as hard as we want it to. And I think that it's just, I don't know, throwing some red flags for me, and I'm going to have to see more.
Ooh, coming from Roblox type, man, that's a little sus. I had no idea.
Yeah,
But
no idea.
That's an interesting piece of information that I'll have to, stash away when we get closer to that release.
I know, because I want to believe in it. I want to think it's great, but maybe they just pit off too much what they could chew with this Everywhere project, and then decide to narrowly focus. And how is that going to affect the development? And is it going to limit it in some way because of how the foundation was created? And we'll see. I want to believe, but I just wanted to put those red flags out there so that you're aware of them.
It's good to know.
Well, thanks for ruining it for me, Dan.
my work here is done.
Yeah. Holy.
All right, wrapping up the show was Saros. Saros is Housemarque's next game after Returnal, and it's set to arrive on PS5 on 2026. While it looks a lot like Returnal, it looks to be a new game set on the planet of Corcosa that is under the threat of an ominous eclipse. Players will take on the role of Arjun Devraj, who is a powerful solitary enforcer searching for answers on a lost off-world colony. There will be permanent progression systems, and every death reshapes the world while offering new upgrades to overcome challenges. This is really the one that they closed the show with. What did you guys think?
I'm hype. I was like, House Marquis going in with like some more Returnal type of game. Like, I mean, you guys have heard me say it before on the show. Returnal is the game for PS5. And so seeing them kind of come back, and what I saw looked pretty sweet. I thought it looked really cool because this was the game of the show for me. I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. I thought Returnal took advantage of the PS5's hardware really well, so I can imagine that they're just gonna go all out with this game. And the way they make the, how they have the feature now where you die and you get power ups. I thought Returnal in some ways was a little frustrating where you just died and you just lost literally everything. You start from square one. So it sounds like this might be a little more accessible to maybe a little more casual of a player. I mean, hopefully they don't lose the toughness that they're known for, but I thought it was pretty cool. I was really, I was very surprised. And then I didn't even know, I was like, oh, and then once I heard it was the Returnal makers, I was even more stoked. So what'd you guys think?
No gameplay. So for all we know, it's a Concord-esque sort of shooter, and we have no idea. Yeah, I can't judge anything. It was a very nice cinematic that I enjoyed. Actually, the actor I love. He's on Midnight Mass and those Netflix shows, House Haunting of Bly Manor. I think he's really great. So I'm excited to see him in the game. But yeah, no gameplay. So I have no opinion of it really. I do think it's funny that they closed their show off. Their big ending game was something with no gameplay, and it's not coming out for another probably 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought that was interesting.
Good point.
That was wild. Yeah. I got to be honest with you. This one doesn't look like one for me either. I definitely would be curious to see gameplay.
Big Baba Booey for this.
Yeah.
For you. From you.
I feel awful. I'm saying the same thing over and over, but they didn't show gameplay. So there was really nothing to get excited about. And then Returnal just hasn't ever piqued my interest. So if it's more of the same, then I'm definitely out. This was a huge, question mark for me. I'm not sure where it's going to go, and I'm guessing I won't care when I find out, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah. But I thought the monster coming out of the ocean was pretty cool, and that was very reminiscent of Death Stranding, to be quite honest. So this thing was just ticking some boxes for me. I was like, let's go.
I want to be wrong. I want to be hyped. I want to fall in love, and maybe it'll happen when I see gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, but dang, now I got Concord on the mind, which is not a good thing. Like if they somehow if they do like a multiplayer or something, I'm gonna
have no idea.
I know, and it could be because they implemented a type of in Returnal. They did implement like a co-op type of online situation. So I just don't want them to go. I don't want them to stray too far from their bread and butter.
Yeah, I agree. Well, definitely straying far from the bread and butter, is what Sony's been doing, because this show only really had one real game from Sony that was coming out. And that was interesting. Yeah. That was Days Gone. And it's another remaster. Surprise, surprise. This generation is crazy. The way number of remasters that they've gotten. And Days Gone is a fantastic game.
Yes.
So it's a bummer that Sony is resorting to just remastering instead of remaking games. But at least it gives everybody an opportunity to check this game out, and I found that very interesting.
Yeah,
But
and Maulding, I was gonna say, it's coming out with a permadeath mode, so there you go, perfect time to jump in.
That might get me into it. I
know.
did try it out a little bit, and I could see how it could be fun. I think I just need some more time with it, and I know Dan, you love it, so
I did.
So that means it's probably pretty bad. I'm just kidding.
It did have some bugs that hopefully they're patching in this latest version.
But
But
I hope so.
Just to be honest with you, the remaster sadly was the only thing that really had me interested in the show. I want to know, what did you guys think overall of the show, and then what grade would you give it? Maulding, you first.
So we didn't talk about a lot of the games. I think there were like 30 plus games that were in there. So I pretty much only included in our list games that I was interested in. So there's a bunch that I'm just not interested in. I don't even think we want to talk about. Like there was a WW game, wrestling game. I mean, I don't even know what. Never seen any of those. So, not everything, I say this a lot, not everything has to be made for me.
Agreed.
However, the things that were made for me all looked pretty similar and all looked like pretty carbon copies of each other. So with that said, I think I got to give this like a C, I think. C minus.
That's fair. Lord.
I mean, I wasn't like, I was expecting a worse show. I kind of came in with the impression that it was going to be like we weren't even going to get games, like new games in any capacity.
They're just going to punch you in the face.
I was just like, so when I came in, I was like, I don't expect anything. But then I was like, no, they showed off a lot. Like it wasn't you're right. It wasn't first party Sony, but like at least we have some games like releasing at some point. And so for that, I mean, geez, like, did you see the graphics on that Dynasty Warriors game though? Like, that was crazy. Like some of the, like, it was insane. I was like, that's a mobile game. So yeah, there were those, but I gotta say, like, I'm gonna give this one I'm gonna give it a C plus because we got games and it wasn't your traditional state of play, but I was still happy to see some games out there. Jeez, like we've been in some sort of drought, so let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
I think for myself, to be honest with you, I appreciate, the third parties because they really are keeping Sony afloat at this point. And it makes me wonder what the F is going on with Sony. Like, did Concord kill more than just $400 million? Did it kill like everything single player wise and everything Sony was working on? Is the PlayStation 5 just a wash? Because this generation, we've gotten nothing but remasters. And I feel sorry for kids who grew up with the PS4 because they have to play the same games on the PS5. And Sony's really pumping out nothing new. And people could say, oh, Astrobot, there's a little occasional here and there. But they're not nailing it with these single player narrative games that we got. And we were so spoiled in the PlayStation 4 era. And the PlayStation 5, they released the Pro, and they didn't even have anything super great to go. The hubris is just mind-blowing here for this company that has no reason to justify a Pro. I was thinking for sure we would see something that was great in this one. We were supposed to see Death Stranding 2, Ghosts of Yate, Bloodborne, Wolverine. Like, where are the games that have been rumored for such a long time? Sony showed nothing. They showed another remaster, which is frustrating, although it's a favorite. So yes, I'm picking it up for $10. But it is frustrating that they are just resting on their laurels doing a victory lap, and they're still getting sales hand over fist. And it is ridiculous that they're not adding anything here. This conference could have been an email. There was no reason for it to exist. And for me, it's clearly an F. This is the worst conference I've ever seen. I mean, I wish
Okay.
And it has no disrespect to the third-party games that were shown because they were really propping Sony up. That F that I'm giving this one is because it's a Sony state of play, and Sony didn't even show up to their own party. It was completely disappointing, and I think it was embarrassing for them. I'm shocked that it was as bad as it was, and that they were still waiting, like trying to put on a show. Like, why even put on a show if you have absolutely nothing to show us? So it was a waste of time, and it just really pissed me off. So it was a really unfortunate situation.
All fair. All fair.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Like where is
Dan's
Sony?
taking it personally.
No, as he should. Like I'm letting him slide a little bit with some of these games, but no, those are valid.
Good. No,
Valid
I love
points.
the difference in opinion, and you guys are right. And there are going to be some gems, and maybe I'm just not seeing the some of the stuff that you have seen, and I will be wowed and down the line. But when I think back to the PlayStation 4, I mean, like, wow, what a great console and what great games, and the fact that they're just remaster after remaster after remaster. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it kind of dovetails though with my next subject that also angers me and blows me away. And that's in the headlines of the week. So let's just jump right into those. First up, moving on, is Xbox has more PS5 games planned than PlayStation does so far in 2025. And that's what really ticks me off here, folks, is that both consoles are so greedy. Sony's not making games, and Xbox is over here saving the PlayStation because they're so greedy. They're putting their games everywhere. Like, what universe are we in? This is completely insane. So first, let me go into the article, and then I want to hear what you guys have to think because I obviously have strong feelings.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, this article comes from Chris Compendio at GameSpot, and it's entitled Microsoft has more games slated for PS5 this year than Sony so far. Microsoft's cross-platform release strategy puts the company in a unique position this year as it currently stands. There are more Xbox first-party games than Sony titles confirmed for PlayStation so far in release in 2025. The February 2025 State of Play live stream on Wednesday contained announcements for several games, but the presentation showcased very few first-party PlayStation games and instead highlighted many third-party titles like Monster Hunter Wilds and Borderlands 4. The only notable Sony-published PS5 titles shown were Days Gone, a re-release, Lost Souls Aside, and Housemarque's Saros, which is scheduled for 2026. For those keeping track, and as pointed out by Eurogamer, Sony's PS5 games confirmed for 2025 so far are Days Gone, Lost Souls, MLB The Show, which releases also on Xbox and Nintendo Switch, Ghosts of Yate, and Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Release windows for Marvel's Wolverine, Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, and Marathon from Bungie have yet to be confirmed. Conversely, Microsoft has Forza Horizon 5, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Doom: The Dark Ages, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, Age of Mythology Retold, The Outer Worlds 2, and Ninja Gaiden 4. Already confirmed for this year. That's 7 PS5 games from Microsoft, and that's not even including the inevitable Call of Duty game, compared to Sony's own 5 titles with solid 2025 release windows. It's a bizarre future for console owners dedicated to the one brand over the other, but a future we'll all have to get used to as more Xbox properties potentially migrate to the PlayStation. So, what do you guys think about this? Is it just me, or are we living in a strange universe?
It seems like the Twilight Zone. Like, how does this headline come to be? I mean, the strangest thing too is like the strategy behind Xbox. Like, wouldn't they want their competitor to flounder a little bit and not get their games? Like right now, it's their chance to strike, and they are not. So
thank you.
What
Sony,
is the deal?
It gave themselves an unforced error by going all in on these live service games, and they have absolutely nothing to back it up now that strategy failed. They are on the ropes, and they put themselves there, and Xbox isn't going to capitalize on that. Instead, they're going to save their ass by supporting them with games. And so that's exactly what I was thinking too. It's such a wild strategy. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No.
Unless Xbox eventually wants to get out of the console business altogether.
Right. And I was going to follow it up. You know who I think is just winning behind the scenes?
Atari.
Atari.
Yes.
Atari, the Dreamcast.
Nailed it.
No, the PC I think is just mopping the floor right now, gents. Like I think as strong as we want I want the PlayStation, the Xbox to keep thriving. I just think the PC's over here just becoming more and more reasonable, more and more accessible as far as games go. And consoles just like we don't even know what to do. I guess we're just gonna join forces. Like that's the only thing. Like we're just joining forces at this point because we got the behemoth PC just going absolutely ape. And yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe it. Maulding, what do you think?
I don't care. I don't care that Microsoft is putting their games on PlayStation. I think it's great. I say this all the time. Be more games available for more people everywhere, I think is a good thing. Not a good thing for Xbox and its longevity, but it's a good thing for gamers to be able to play these games everywhere. Maybe someone is going to play a game, maybe they'll play Avowed on the PlayStation later on this year and think, hey, Microsoft puts out some really great games. I'm going to buy an Xbox. Maybe. I don't know. Probably not, but might be something that happens. So
Okay.
I play Xbox because it's the just my main console. I'm not going to buy any of these games that were just in this direct on PlayStation. If I have the ability to, I'm going to buy them on Xbox. So it doesn't bother me, to be honest.
I love your, more games everywhere is better because that's real hippie thinking.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, but that hippie bullshit doesn't fly. And here's the reason why. It has me concerned because if and when Xbox goes out of the game in terms of console manufacturing, then Sony is left and they have a monopoly. Yes, Nintendo's over there doing its own thing, but they're not really rivaling Sony. And then if Sony's already sitting on its laurels and not producing any content, they're taking the Valve approach. It's like, hey, Valve, I see what you're doing over there. Absolutely nothing. You're just cashing in on the titles that are on your platform. You once made great games. In fact, I really loved them and wish you'd make more, but you don't. And that's exactly what I'm afraid Sony is going to do the second that Xbox goes out of the game. We need the competition in the ecosystem. So it's not that you have to. So I love the idea of more games everywhere is a great thing, but really we need Sony to be, they can't run away with it. We need them to have a competitor in the fight, or else we are going to lose the console war.
Yes, it's like Overwatch having the Marvel rivals.
Yes,
the Marvel rivals.
No, that's true.
You
make a good point.
It's that competition, and I agree. I'm nervous that Sony's going to be the one left standing, and man, the PS5 has been proof that they are just like chilling, not doing anything. It's crazy. So I don't know. It's looking a little bleak right now.
It definitely is. All right, well, speaking of things that are a little bit rosier in the gamosphere and aren't looking as bleak, Avowed did release on Xbox, or is about to, in paid early access, and then next week it's actually out for the rest of us plebes who didn't actually pay for the early access, but it's been getting some pretty good reviews.
Yes.
Lord, I believe you had the story.
Yeah, so this first part comes from Comic Books Amanda K. Oakes. Avowed is finally set to arrive on Xbox and PC on February 18th. For many critics, Avowed is shaping up to be a solid contender in the fantasy RPG space, though it's not coming for Skyrim's crown. In particular, reviews praise the writing and world building alongside a gamer-friendly user interface that offers a smooth playing experience. The combat system also looks to be a win, with fast-paced, enjoyable fights that keep the player engaged. That said, it's not all great news. Many reviews note that it can take a little while to really get into the game, as it takes a while for the story to grab you. Others note that while it offers a decent RPG experience, Avowed isn't necessarily doing anything new or exciting in the space compared with other popular titles. Okay, what do you guys think so far before we take a closer look at the critics? Is this something that's like, well, I needed some story, I needed some combat? Where did you what are you guys thinking so far in your Avowed stance.
I'm in. I'm super excited. I read a few of these reviews. There was only one thing that got me a little hesitant, and someone said that the enemies don't respawn. So if you kill an enemy in part of the world or a bunch of enemies and you want to go back to that area, there won't be any enemies to fight. It's just
Yeah.
there's nothing there. So that had me concerned. I didn't like that. But it's being downloaded, not currently. It's already on my machine. I'm ready for it to be played. I'm super pumped next week.
Nice.
Yeah. Some of the criticisms I've heard are the same thing you've heard. Also, that there aren't many enemy types and you fight like a lot of bears. And the reviewers were kind of over how many bears that they fought.
That's kind of hilarious.
Then they said one thing that was really crushing for me, and that was that it doesn't do anything new. It's serviceable fantasy RPG, but it doesn't break any of the molds or really do anything wild or different. And that's why, you know what, like I'm not going to be a total downer this episode. I will say, yes, I'm going to play it. Can't wait to get my hands on it. But for me, this is the perfect Game Pass game. This is why I pay for Game Pass. This game seems very mid, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to play it, but it's definitely not something I would have paid for on its own.
Yeah. So a couple of this is what the reviewers I picked out 3 here to kind of give us a range. So VG247 gives Avowed a solid 100, saying that's what Avowed is: strong storytelling, great combat, lovely visuals, and utterly charming. It's not going to light everyone's hair on fire, but that's fine because I know for a certain subset of people, refined people of taste, if you ask me, Avowed will enjoy cult classic status. It doesn't necessarily push the envelope, but nor does it need to. It's exactly what it needs to be. Okay, that's 100% right there. So
and
digital
I can
trend
love a mid game. I can have a great time with a mid game.
Exactly.
It's just my expectations are a bit lower.
Digital Trend gives it a 90 with Avowed. Obsidian Entertainment once again flaunts its writing chops with a fantasy story that is contemporary in its themes and combat that feels better than most other first-person Western RPGs. Whether you've experienced a Pillars of Eternity game before or not, this is a must-play. High praise right there. Then we get to IGN that gives it a 70. With awesome world building and stellar character writing, Avowed reminds me why I fell in love with Obsidian's RPGs in the first place. However, the bigger picture is that it plays it quite safe with a by the numbers fantasy adventure that's more familiar than evolutionary, and there's barely any enemy variety to keep its swords and sorcery battles interesting for long.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I think it sounds acceptable, like I'm sure we'll have a good time with it.
This is what Outer Worlds is to Fallout. This is to Skyrim. That's how I see it. And Outer Worlds was fun. Not my favorite game in the world, but I enjoyed playing it, and I think that's probably how I'll feel about Avowed.
Agreed.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking it was going to be the next Skyrim. No. I knew that. And so I don't know if the writer was like, it's not coming. I was like,
maybe expectations were too high. Maybe.
Yes. But Game Pass.
But now they're properly set, and I feel like I can go into it and enjoy it. And I am looking forward to it when I get there. I'm not in a rush, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, moving on. I definitely we're tight on time, but I wanted to get to the Overwatch 2 story because it seemed really interesting. Maulding, this was yours.
Yeah, so there was an announcement this week of a bunch of changes coming to Overwatch 2 that really got my attention. So Blizzard is bringing some of the most substantial changes to Overwatch 2 since it launched in 2022. Yes. In a 30-minute long spotlight presentation, the company revealed several changes and new modes, as well as a new hero coming to the shooter in 2025. Here are some of the big ones. First off is perks, allowing you to upgrade your hero throughout a match and fundamentally change their ability sets to cater to your playstyle. This feels like the revival of the planned skill trees that would have given heroes different abilities that riffed on their base ones in a PvE mode that was canceled in 2023. This will be implemented in quick play and competitive modes in Season 15, which is beginning on February 18th. Blizzard is adding new rewards to the competitive mode. Loot boxes return next week, available in the free Battle Pass track and with weekly rewards. That was a huge thing for me because I don't buy any cosmetics. Love to get cosmetics for free in those loot boxes.
I love loot boxes.
Super into that. I love that. 6v6 will have its own competitive queue. A new DPS hero, Freya, will be introduced in Season 16, and another one was teased for Season 18. But here is the big one. Using what they learned from the success of Junkenstein's Laboratory last Halloween, Stadium is a new mode that includes mods, a new mechanic that allows you to make incremental upgrades to your stats and abilities to create your own build for your character. At the beginning of each round, players are given access to an armory and can spend earned points from the previous round to upgrade their characters' traits and abilities. And what we talked about earlier, competition, what feels like a response to Marvel Rivals, you will be able to choose between first and third person while playing this mode. So I deleted Overwatch 2 from my console a couple weeks ago. I might actually put it back for this because I want to try out some of these new modes. What about you, Lord?
Dude.
Are you coming back?
Honestly, I love the sound of all this BS that they're cranking out. And you know what we can thank for this? Marvel Rivals.
Marvel Rivals.
Oh
Exactly.
my gosh. I have never seen a company react to getting destroyed so fast in my life. They're like, we need to do something. And this is what it needed. It lit the fire. And now we're getting some quality upgrade. Like, I love the perk situation because that means as varied as all games are in Overwatch, because they are always varied, that will take it to another level where you'll even see more variation. Dan, I see you shaking your head. It's gonna be, I think that's gonna be awesome. I love that. As long as it is implemented correctly, I'll definitely jump back in the Overwatch arena because I love Overwatch. That's just like, I love it. So
Junkenstein's Laboratory was the freshest that game has felt in years. So if they match that, I'm in.
Yeah. And I'm interested in a third person mode. Always. I love third person. I love seeing my character.
Look, I gotta say, guys, I really hope you have fun with this because I don't want to be the Debbie Downer of this whole damn episode. But I already played Battleborn, and that's essentially what it is. That game tanked because it sucked.
Battleborn was fun. Yeah, it would just
I thought poor release. Sucked. I thought Battleborn sucked, and so I mean, this new mode sounds like it is literally Battleborn, and
is that where they're getting it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same.
I mean,
we'll see,
maybe there's some similarities, probably, but it's been a long time.
Interesting.
I mean, that was 10 years ago.
At least this is PvP, where Battleborn was PvE.
Yeah,
so there's a little difference, but it was so tedious going to each round and leveling your character up, and you pretty much just leveled them up the same way every single time. Yeah, you had to stop and do it, and then you went in there, and it was just. There's a reason Battleborn doesn't exist, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully it's not, the same.
The perks can't take away from you moving. Like, you don't have time to do any of that in Overwatch. You have to be able to do these perks on the fly. They have to be quick. You can't take time. Like, if they do that, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, you're right. It could be better. We'll see, but we got to move on. We have one segment left, and that is our discussion topics of the week. All right. If you are interested in asking a question, please reach out to goodplayingwithyou@gmail.com. Our first topic tonight comes from none other than Matt Maulding.
This guy. So I wanted to know if there are any games that have surprised the hell out of you, either good or bad. And I thought about this watching this presentation from Sony, that there could be games in there that we think look like shit and are gonna just really surprise us. So my two are The Surge, which is a game I did not see coming. It came out of nowhere for me. It was one of the very first a Soulsborne type of games that I played that wasn't a Dark Souls or a Demon Souls. And they nailed it. It was such a fun game. You you would be able to target different body parts of your enemies and cut them off and then use them as weapons. Super fun. The graphics look great. I love the science-esque aspect of it. Super into it. I loved it. Huge surprise for me. Never saw coming. And then my second one was Divinity Original Sin. I got a hold of it long after everyone else had when it came to Xbox. Didn't know who Larian didn't know who they were. And I had never played a game like this before. And if you haven't played Divinity Original Sin or the second one, pick them up. They're the spiritual predecessors to Baldur's Gate 3. You'll love them. They give you such freedom to do what you want to be able to do. And the voice acting is fantastic. So those are my two that really surprised me, both for the good.
Good, great call, Maulding. Those are awesome. Definitely fun. My two that I just I couldn't even help myself. My first one is, why am I losing? Oh, here we go. Honestly, Pictocross games. Like, these games surprise me for the good. Like, this game is so
fun. It's just so random.
I know. Like, no, both the games are very random. Picross, I was like, why would I ever play this? And all of a sudden I look at the clock. It's been like 8 hours. I'm building a flower vase. I'm like, what am I doing? And then,
oh my God, I've lived that life.
Yes,
I've totally been there.
It's
I love
so fun. So that was the first surprise. And then the next surprise, Tetris 99. That game,
Oh,
I could not believe how much fun and how much time I sunk it. There'd be times where I would be sitting I would be sweating 1v1. I would always lose, but it was such a good time. That is a way to kind of mix up a genre that you never knew needed a VR. And Tetris 99 was awesome. I loved that game. What a surprise. Both for the good.
Huh.
yeah,
Interesting
good choices.
picks. Yeah. And yes, even though I've been a Debbie Downer all episode, and I promise I'll go touch grass right after this, and
get some sun or something. I don't know what you got to do.
I need some help. I do. I surely do. I'm even too toxic for myself. But this time, I actually was able to find two really good surprises that I absolutely loved. I was so shocked by Remnant 2. I don't know if you guys have sunk a lot of time in that one. I'm going through the DLC
friend
right
of the
now.
pod, and I played it a lot. It's super fun.
So much fun. Basically, the first one came out and I missed it completely. And then they put it on super cheap discount right when the second one came out. So I bought the first one and I started playing it and I was like, okay, I get it. This is great. I've never played this formula. I've never heard of this franchise. Wow, this is quality and there's so much thought here. Even though I had only played that game for maybe an hour, I turned it off and I went and I bought Remnant 2 immediately because they also had it, relatively cheap. And man, I sunk so much time into that, leveling up my guns and exploring. And then, unfortunately, it's one of those games where you have to look up everything online. But it was worth it because, I got to the end boss, couldn't beat him. Then I went back and grinded through the worlds and found all of these artifacts and stuff that made me super powerful. And so then I did kill the boss, and it just felt really, really satisfying. And I'd never played a tile-based world game that created its own levels that way. Super smart, super fun, co-op. Don't miss that one for sure. And then I'm going to say one that everyone's going to be like, well, of course, it's so obvious. But you're all lying because no one knew Witcher 3 was going to hit as hard as it did. I'm telling you,
that's so obvious, Dan.
Just shut it right now. Because if you look back, Witcher 1 and 2, they're, nice looking games and stuff like that, but they weren't Witcher 3. And so there was no way anyone could have known the benchmarks that game was going to set for open world games that still haven't even been, especially in storytelling, have not even been equaled or surpassed yet today. Witcher 3.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Well, okay, that's fair because I haven't played that one and I do know that it's well regarded. But this is a different one because you don't roll dice or play little people. This is an actual proper adventure, the way games are supposed to be created. And it was super fantastic. It wasn't really on my radar. I was kind of interested. I didn't know what I was getting. And I think my expectations were so low. The fact that it was just mind-blowingly fantastic and has retained, the top of my list of great games just speaks volumes about how well it was done. And I wish other games today could equal that. And hopefully, I'm sure someday they will. But dang, that one came out of nowhere, and I'm sure happy it did.
Great. No, great point.
Great picks.
Yeah.
Thanks for staying positive with all these guys and not picking ones that you're like, oh, that one sucks.
I know,
all
right?
good
Well,
stuff.
I had to redeem my soul. I was feeling dirty with being such a hater all episode. I had to redeem my soul just a little bit.
You got to speak your truth.
Yeah.
That pretty much wraps up everything we have for this week. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, please tell like 11 friends. And on behalf of Matthew Maulding, Matt Lord, and myself, Dan Whitehill, thank you for joining us. And as always, good playing with you.
Good playing with you.
Good playing with you.